Zone B, Captain. You have thrown the bus. Zone C, lost. Double down. Yes. 3 down. Zone C, lost. 2 for 1. Yes. 3 down.
Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to discuss and review the most rare and most exclusive weapon out of any other weapon in this entire game, and it's called the Not Forgotten. I'm sure that by now, many of you, if not all of you, have heard of this phenomenal beast. And the reason why you have so is because this thing right here is the pinnacle reward in the competitive playlist. The only way to get your hands on this thing is to number 1, complete the Luna's Howl questline. Then after you do so, you have to get 600 kills with the Luna's Howl in comp, and then finally, reach the highest tier possible in the competitive playlist, aka Legend. Reaching 5,500 glory points in the competitive playlist has been one of the most strenuous and most difficult grinds that I have ever done. But might I add that this thing is worth it, because not only do I have this bad boy on my own personal account, but on top of this, it is one of the best weapons in this entire game, and the reason as to why this is what we're going to get into right now. To find out if the Not Forgotten is truly the best PvP weapon in all of Destiny 2, the only thing left to do is to eviscerate that notification button, and let's jump right into the video. The very first thing that I like to do is I like to look at the weapon's optimal headshot and body shot time to kills respectively. With the Not Forgotten, this thing is doing around 57 points of damage in the head and then 39 points of damage in the body. Now if we were to associate both of these two things to an optimal headshot and body shot time to kill respectively, the optimal headshot TTK is exactly at 1 second on the dot and is going to require 3 critical headshots and 1 body shot to achieve this. Looking solely at body shots and body shots alone, the weapon's body shot TTK is going to be 1.67 seconds and is then going to associate to 6 body shots. Averaging these two values together of 1 second and 1.67 seconds and divided by 2, the overall average time to kill is going to be 1.33 seconds. But just keep in mind that everything that you're seeing right there on screen is with a Guardian that has 201 points of health, aka 10 resilience. A lot of Guardians are not going to be running this kind of resilience, and so in actuality, most of them are going to be running around say 6 or 7 resilience at the most, and if that's the case, then this thing is going to require 2 critical headshots and 2 body shots to actually obtain the weapon's optimal TTK at 1 second. After hearing this little bit of information, you guys are probably thinking, alright, well this thing isn't too special in any means, but to you, I say that it is very, very special. And that's because this Not Forgotten has a marvelous and phenomenal and truly exceptional perk, which is called Magnificent Howl. Magnificent Howl states that rapidly landing 2 precision shots grants a short period of bonus damage until your next kill or miss. Now the exact time limit that you have as soon as you happen to land 2 crits is going to be 3 seconds. And so as soon as you happen to either kill somebody or miss someone, then that's when that 3-second time frame is going to be gone. However, if you happen to continue to land shots from one Guardian to the next and don't kill them or miss them, this Magnificent Howl perk is still going to proc from one Guardian to the next, and this leads the weapon's potential to be astronomical in so many ways, and that is by not only 3-tapping, but 2-tapping as well. Yes, my friends, you heard me correctly, as I said that this Not Forgotten not only has the potential to 3-tap, but 2-tap on top of all that stuff. And when that's the case, this thing can have an optimal headshot time to kill at 0.67 seconds for a 3-tap and 0.33 seconds for 2-tapping, which cannot be done by any other weapon except the Luna's Howl. Now as to the reason as to why the Not Forgotten is the big brother to the Luna's Howl is what we're going to get into in just a couple of seconds. But before I do so, you guys have to understand how this thing is first going to 3-tap and then 2-tap. So as soon as you guys happen to get the Magnificent Howl perk to proc, you've got to be able to first land those 2 crits and then either a headshot or a body shot afterwards to get the 3-tap. When this is the case, that third shot is either going to be doing 131 points of damage in the head or 88 points of damage in the body. Once again, all the stats that you guys are seeing right there on screen is with a Guardian that has 10 resilience or 201 points of health. And so the reason I want to point this out is because it doesn't matter if you happen to be coming across a 10 resilience Titan or a different character of that case, it's still going to be exactly this optimal TTK at 0.67 seconds, regardless of whether or not they have 10 resilience. Now, as to the way in which you get this thing to 2-tap is quite a different story, and you have to be actually mindful of this when you're trying to get those 2-taps, because the only way that this is going to happen is when you actually have a cluster of guardians, and you're actually going from one into the next, so that you're then able to proc 2 critical headshots on one guardian on the left, one guardian on the right, or whatever it might be. And as soon as you happen to do so, you're then going to proc Magnificent Howl, and when that's the case, you're still going to have that critical damage output for that 3 seconds. And so you can literally go from one guardian into the next and still proc 131, 131, and thus completely annihilate, decimate, and truly eradicate every guardian in your path, and that is something that I can say with 110% certainty. As I said from before, when you guys do happen to 2-tap somebody, the weapon's optimal headshot TTK is 0.33 seconds. But what I didn't mention from before is that this thing can either 2-tap you by either laying 2 crits or 1 crit in one body, and thus you're still going to be able to down guardians who still have that 201 points of health, aka 10 resilience. Now at this point, there is no doubt in my mind that many of you are asking yourselves the question, alright Xander, well, what makes this thing so much better or worse than the Luna, and furthermore, is this even going to be worth my time to grind and to actually get to Legend? To really understand the answer to this question, we have to know a few comparisons and a few differences between that of the Luna and this Not Forgotten. And so the very first thing that I want to show you right here is that the Luna and the Not Forgotten actually have 2 similar perks, both of which are the Precision Frame archetype and Zen Moment. As you guys can see, Precision Frame states that the weapon's recoil pattern is more predictably vertical, but on top of this, Zen Moment also states that causing damage with this weapon increases its stability. Now, what a lot of Guardians don't know about Precision Frame is that this right here is actually the exact same thing as what Counterbalance was back in the day from Destiny 1. And to be more precise, it converts 80% of the horizontal recoil to vertical recoil, making the weapon's shot rhythm go skyrocketing through the roof. And the same case can also be made not just for the Not Forgotten, but also for the Luna's Howl. Understanding that, we now have to analyze as to how the Luna and of course the Not Forgotten are so drastically different. And the way in which they are so is not just by their other perks, called Extended Barrel and Accurized Rounds, but their masterwork. As you all can see, Extended Barrel states that this is a weighted barrel extension that increases the weapon's range but decreases the handling speed. On top of this, we have Accurized Rounds. An Accurized Round states that the weapon can fire longer distances, implying that the weapon's range is increased significantly. Furthermore, the Not Forgotten always comes with a masterwork of plus 10 range, and so in this circumstance, you guys can clearly see that the Not Forgotten is designed for range, whereas the Luna's Howl is designed for stability. Grasping this, the next question that I want you guys to ask yourselves is how much greater is stability or range, and which do I prefer? Well, the things that you guys have to understand about stability is that the greater a weapon's stability is, the more likely that the weapon's recoil pattern is going to be less, and thus you're then going to have a better overall shot rhythm because you're going to be able to have more shots land critical headshots and thus obtain the weapon's optimal headshot TTK. For that, the Luna's Howl, this is exactly the case, but for the Not Forgotten, it's got range. And the reason why range is so much better than stability is because range is not only going to increase the weapon's damage fall off at longer distances, but it also increases the weapon's aim assist at those longer distances, and in addition to this, it also affects the weapon's bloom effect. Now, for those of you that don't know what the bloom effect is, it's also known as what we call ghost bullets. And so each one of these terminologies is actually referring to the exact same thing, which is when it appears to you, the shooter, that your bullets are landing on the enemy guardian, but in actuality, they're not. Now, if you were to ask me, I would say that hands down, range is by all means the most important stat on hand cannons, and that's because not only is it going to give you all the benefits that I just said, but whenever you can avoid ghost bullets or the bloom effect, that is exactly what I would do every single time. For this one reason and one reason alone, I believe that the Not Forgotten is definitely one of the most exceptional and superb weapons out of any other weapon in this entire game, and is also why I believe that not just because of its 3-tapping and 2-tapping potential, but because it can be so consistent that that's why it is the best weapon in this entire game. Having said that, the Not Forgotten still has one massive drawback, and that is that its stability is actually quite more vertical and has much more of a recoil pattern in contrast to that of the Luna's Howl. The Luna's is a much more consistent weapon, at least in terms of its stability, which is why it's much easier to land with critical headshots. However, you have to be able to have a very skilled hand in order for you to be able to use the Not Forgotten effectively. And this is why I believe that Bungie put this weapon into that legend category, because the only way in which you're truly going to get to that level is if you have exactly this, a skilled hand. If you can master the Not Forgotten shot rhythm, this thing is going to be able to outplay not just the Luna's Howl, but almost every single other primary, and that's because it's universal, not just in close, but mid, and possibly even those far-range engagements, where scout rifles, auto rifles, and pulse rifles excel, making this Not Forgotten all the more universal. And when that's the case, you can definitely bet your bottom dollar that this thing right here is going to make enemy guardians a little bit salty. Taking one step back, what I really want you guys to understand next is, like I said from before, you have to understand this weapon's shot rhythm. And the best way in order for you to do so is to look at the weapon's base stats. And so as you guys can see right there, the weapon has a range factor at 47, a stability at 61, a moderate handling speed at 42, a pretty decent reload speed at 59, and an aim assistance at 79, followed by a marvelous and absolutely spectacular recoil direction at 95. As far as the weapon's shot rhythm goes, you're looking at stability, aim assistance, and recoil direction. And the Not Forgotten has all of these base stats and flying colors, as every single one of them is above 60. And this right here is something that you simply just don't find on many hand cannons in Destiny 2. With this, the very next thing that I want to point out about this weapon's base stats is that its range factor at 47 is actually not a fair assessment as to what it truly is, and that's because this base range is not taking into account the weapon's other perks that increase the weapon's range, aka extended barrel, accurized rounds, and the plus 10 range masterwork. When factoring in these two perks, along with the range masterwork, the weapon's overall effective range is going to be somewhere in between, say 70 and 80, and now keep in mind that this is just a ballpark estimation, but nonetheless, that is absolutely phenomenal and glorious and truly out of this world, because there is not another single hand cannon that has that kind of range. The only other thing that I want to say about the weapon's base stats is that it's actually got quite a poor handling speed at 42, and so you're really going to have to be able to pay attention to your radar as well as having good map awareness to land those critical headshots. But on top of this, the weapon's magazine size is only at 10, and although the weapon still has a great reload speed at almost 60, I would highly recommend that you guys actually put a mod called Backup Mag on this, and that's because that's going to increase the weapon's magazine size from 10 to 13. Having 13 bullets in the magazine is not only going to allow you to have multiple triple kills as you guys have seen throughout this entire footage, but potentially some lights out and Slayer medals, all with just using the Not Forgotten and the Not Forgotten alone. Now, if backup mag isn't your style, then what I would recommend is to either have one targeting adjuster to increase the weapon's overall aim assistance, which is then going to allow you to hit more critical headshots, thus proccing Magnificent Howl, or go with a counterbalance mod that's then going to decrease the weapon's overall recoil direction, making it much similar to that of the Luna's. And if this is the case, then you're certainly going to land more crits just the same way to proc Magnificent Howl. After going over the weapon in this much detail, I think that you guys now have a very solid assessment as to how powerful that this Not Forgotten truly is. This weapon stands at the pinnacle of all PvP weapons and is certainly worth the grind, and so if you guys can do so, I would highly recommend that you try and get this weapon. Now, I'm not going to lie, is this an easy task? No. That's a big capital N and a capital O, because this weapon right here is by all means the most challenging weapon that I have ever tried to get in all of Destiny's history. Nonetheless, the question still remains, is the Not Forgotten better than the Luna's Howl? To you, I think that you guys already know my answer, but I don't know yours, and so I'm very intrigued to hear your guys' thoughts and whether or not you've gotten it or you haven't, whether you're striving for it or you're not, and I certainly cannot wait to see all those comments. As you guys know, I'm definitely going to read them all. Lastly, go ahead and check out some of my other new videos, as you guys can see right there on the screen. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy those as well. That's pretty much all that I've got for you as of right now, and so as always, Deislayers, great gaming, until next time.